Hi, good afternoon. This is Rob Rotman on a cold and gray Chicago morning. This year marks the 25th anniversary of a theater company that I feel a great affection for, the Tellin Tales Theater Company. And who better to talk about it but than our favorite guest, the artistic director of Tellin Tales, Tekki Lomnicki. Tekki, would you first please read this quote, and maybe just as an interesting way to get in our show.
Okay, thank you. And this is by Tennessee Williams, who is a favorite of ours. We, the queer, the black, the woman, the odd, the malformed, are the guilty consciousnesses of our country, and we enter through the back doors and become the stuff of nightmares. We are destroyed by actions and by thoughts. What Mary Baker Eddy called malicious animal magnetism. The minds and hearts and courts of the world are firmly set against us, but we belong to the world. This is what James Baldwin always repeated to me always. The world not only owns us as slaves and nemesises and boogeymen and whores and servants and dancing dogs. They own us as sons and brothers and daughters. We can only attempt to make them love us if we can somehow make them see us.
Thank you. Tekki, how did Tellin Tales Theater begin?
Well, it began with our first show.
Right.
When Heck was a puppy. And what that was about was a folk artist that was a real person that my co-writer, Michael Blackwell, and Nancy Shelton interviewed, and we took her stories almost exactly. And what was cool about her and about folk artists is that they used art to help heal from any kind of affliction or death or anything. Well, the story melded with my own story of having a disability, which was really cool. We added some of my stuff in there, and it became a hit. It really did. People loved it. And then we realized that it was time to really have a theater of the personal story, to use story to heal, to connect us, to be seen, as Tennessee Williams would say. Because my belief is that if we share our stories with each other, we get so much closer, and there is an understanding.
Right. You know, I remember, I think we met, of course, if you remember, at the Old Remains Theater.
Yeah.
And I think Susan Nussbaum and MJ Schnell ran that group. And, of course, then we were in activities of daily living. And then I guess you grew from there.
Yes. Well, then we decided, Michael and I and Nancy decided to form Tellin Tales Theater. And that's how it all happened there.
Yeah. Then, like, I know that, what kind of experiences, I think you taught to a group of junior high students, and how did Maggie Daly become?
Okay, well, then what happened was Michael Blackwell, my co-founder, went to an event at the Cultural Center, and he met Maggie Daly. He told her about me. He told her about what we were wanting to do, and she said, "Oh wow, you know what? I'm starting a beautiful summer theater program with kids with and without disabilities, and it's going to be like a 6-week class workshop all day, every day." And Michael said, "Oh, that's fine. Tekki will teach it." Well, without asking me, he volunteered me. And the thing is I had never taught before. And though I loved kids, I didn't really know how they would react to me, really. And it was quite amazing. And it was kids from a poor neighborhood, and then they bussed the kids with disabilities in. And I'll tell you, after a while, the kids bonded so much. The non-disabled kids really watched out for the kids with disabilities, and yet treated them as equals.
That's great.
It was just beautiful.
Yeah.
And then that's when I got the idea for our show, Six Stories Up.
And, one thing before, I do want to say, it's interesting, I think about Maggie Daly. Years ago, there was a group called ACT UP, and they confronted Mayor Daley about, disease and everything. And he looked at this group and said, "Don't you dare tell me that I don't know what disease is. My wife and I lost our son to spinal bifida."
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why she was such a champion for people with
Right.
disabilities.
And I know Marka Bristow, God rest her soul, always used that story about, this family, these people know what disability is.
Yeah, absolutely, especially losing a child.
Yeah, child. Now, so to explain Six Stories Up.
Okay, so what I got from that first summer experience was that when kids are mentored one-on-one, by the way, that grew into us working with Gallery 37.
Okay, right.
And I noticed that when kids were mentored one-on-one, if I would take somebody out and really work with them, they grew enormously. So I thought to myself, why not put together mentors, my friends that were in theater, or they were teachers, or they were directors, or they were actors, and have each of them work with one child, and then have 6 of them, 6 stories up, which meant urban. It was originally 6 stories up in urban adventure. And so every year we change it. 6 stories up in the treetops, 6 stories up on a rooftop, which was a Christmas one, 6 stories up in outer space.
Yep. And the 6 stories up are poster in Mount Everest.
On Mount Everest, that Rob was
And
in.
that's what I always love is that, Mike Urban was working with Sidney Passione. And did he say, I think if I'm right, he said, "Yeah, look, why don't we let Rob play Ed Roberts?"
Yes. So Rob played Ed Roberts, which was wonderful, and we had him in this amazing iron lung that our set designer made.
Oh, God. I missed that thing. It was so wonderful.
It was really great. Anyway, this has grown. I mean, we're 25 years old now, and it's just an amazing experience for both the kids and the mentors. And kids learn about history. I personally love the history ones.
Okay.
Because in that show, Mount Everest, I played Amelia Earhart, who is always has been one of my heroes.
And then now, in terms of what has happened to some of the people who were, children when 6 Stories Up began, where have they gone? And
Well, I'm in touch with quite a few of
Yeah,
them. Nura Ali, who was in Six Stories Up in Outer Space, is now a teacher, violin teacher at a public school in Evanston. Simone LaPierre is in Madison. She directs theater. She's a therapist by trade, and has worked in theaters for people with disabilities.
that's great. And then let's not forget, I think Tristan, whatever happened to
Tristan, okay, that's a wonderful story because I had, for that very first summer, okay, I had my friend Amy joining me to teach choreography. And her, not yet, no, he was her husband at the time, do music with the kids. And so, and then I would do the playwriting with them to create an actual story. Well, the night before Amy and I were to start this program at the Park District with, it was called the Magic City Theater Camp. Amy says, you know what? I think I'll be okay. Just so there's not a kid with no arms and no legs, I could teach anybody dancing.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, who rolls in but Tristan? He had, arms up only up to his elbows and legs only up to his knees. And Amy and I looked at each other like, be careful what you say, it may happen. And I have to tell you, Tristan was the best dancer, the best storyteller, and everything in the class.
It's like, I think people look at us as people with disabilities, but when you see Tristan, you don't see,
No,
Yeah.
he had girlfriends. He was
good,
just a Mr. Personality. He was in 2 Six Stories Ups. And he was just a audience favorite.
That's great, and speaking of which, of course, we can't not talk about, of course, Ben Saylor. What is he doing?
Ben Saylor is still with Tellin Tales. He is working for a mortgage company, but he loves theater on the side, and he's been in several of our shows.
Yeah, I know. Did he play Vice President Cheney in one show? I think.
Yes.
Yeah, because I know my late friend Mark Struff was like, that guy has star material over him.
Oh, he is. He's a little person, and he's amazing. I met him when he was 10.
Wow. And he did, am I right? There was a show about FDR. Was he FDR in that show? I think.
No.
Because it was Miss LaHand.
Yeah, I think he was going to be a physical therapist or something.
Maybe, but you just the energy of him, and I hope we can use him because he is just outstanding.
He really is.
Now talk about I know you do classes. Do you still do with people? You've done. I'm thinking of a young woman who we both know, who was in the playwriting class named Jessica Carlton. Did she do one of your classes? I think.
Yes, she did. I believe she even took 2 of them.
Oh yeah, okay. Talk about her, yeah.
Well, she's in LA now, doing well, and she won an Emmy, I believe. Has a little boy and a husband.
And just so much energy, yeah. And how did you, talk about other stories that you did on your classes and what people talked about, yeah.
Well, I really encourage people to go deep in their stories, especially now. So what happened is that was my Everybody Has a Story class. Well, that continued when Carrie Sandal asked me to do a workshop, a story workshop, with all adults with disabilities. My whole thing was always mixing people with and without disabilities, which is a big deal for Tellin Tales Theater. I've always felt that we should not ghettoize people with disabilities or have people without disabilities shadow them and do the speaking for them or move them around. No, I encourage everyone to move as they can and to speak as they can and to be themselves. Well, Carrie Sandell from UIC and Bodies of Work said, you know what? Why don't we try this? You know, just
Yeah.
a workshop with all people with disabilities. She said, because I think there may be kind of an intimacy that would come from that. You know, not being afraid to talk about things that non-disabled people might not understand, or you think they wouldn't understand. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And we had this class, and we did a workshop show at Access Living, which was, Rob, you were in that as well. And that gave me the idea to continue that class and produce a show called Diversity. And it's Diversity, because we're Chicago.
Right.
And we have disabled people who are queer. We have disabled people who are Black. We have disabled people who are Latino. You know, it's diversity. So that has been going on now
Yeah.
for, I think, 8 years
Yeah.
or 9 years.
Right.
And that show gets
You have teams of families.
so deep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
People like really tell their stories. And we have gotten feedback that that's some people's favorite show that we do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, in terms of your storytelling, I know that we've always, we tend, I remember when we did activities, the theater, you're not allowed to hate for the critic, for the reader, and that people have to like the show out of guilt. Then when we worked on 6 Stories Up, one of the critics said, I think this is the theater of good intentions. It's just social work. What do you say when people say that?
Well, 6 Stories Up isn't meant to be though it is beautiful in that we have gorgeous sets and everything.
But
We have gorgeous sets, we have masks, we have music, original music always, we have singing. Well, what that person meant is that it's not a polished off-Broadway
Right.
thing. So we never invite critics. After that,
Yep.
never invite them to 6 Stories Up. That's not what this is about.
right,
This is a community-based show, and it's meant to bring people together
Right.
and to learn, audiences and participants alike.
right, and it's strange because that one critic for the Windy City Times, I don't want to give his name, but I know he does have a cousin who has kind of an connection with the deaf community. So, you think he would be more understanding. But, yeah. So in terms of diversity, what do people talk about in that show?
People talk about abuse.
Yeah.
People talk about death.
I know, for me, I did a piece about my dear late friend Glenda Gill and how much she meant to me over the years. And, she's one of those people, she once said, Rob, you and I get along so well because we've had so many doors shut in our face.
Yeah. But you know what piece I really liked that you did was the one about where you were going through your boxes.
Oh.
And you were talking about Sinatra and
Right.
and Barbara
By the way, that's right.
Streisand. It was really good. And at the end, didn't we play There's a Place for Us?
Yep.
That was absolutely
Yeah,
amazing.
and of course it's interesting because that was when I was trying to have my problem. So it's like someone was helping me move, and of course I had to end up moving. But I
Right.
still have my Barbara Streisand stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That was a great piece too.
Yep.
I really liked that.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think of some other.
Yeah, I know. Was there a gentleman D? I believe his name.
Yes, D goes by they,
Oh, they. Okay.
they them, and that's one of the major success stories
yeah.
of diversity, because D had never even thought of telling stories. And this is my favorite thing that happened anyway, Dee met me at St. Martin's Church. And they really, they kind of bonded with
Okay,
me.
that's
And I invited them to take the big 6-week class I was having. That was just a day class. Then I invited Dee to come to the 6-week class.
Oh, well.
And Dee came to the first class, and it was a class where I had brought a whole bunch of objects, and I told the class, pick an object that you can relate to that conjures up a story for you.
Right.
So Dee picked a little red glove of mine and told this amazing story about boys that his siblings would say, boys do not wear red gloves.
Oh, wow.
And it was all about how he was, they were, as a child, bullied for not being like everyone else.
Wow.
And they have like very bad eyesight,
Wow. So, yeah.
legally blind.
Wow. Now, so, I'm wondering, okay, how has the Zoom experience changed everything for you in your work?
Actually, I have to say that the Zoom experience really helped us. And I'll tell you how. It really helped us to bring more community together because what we can do is invite people from all over the country to take the classes, to take diversity,
Right.
to be in 6 Stories Up. Last year, 2020
Okay, yeah.
was our first Zoom 6 Stories Up
Right.
and our first Zoom diversity. And so first it was diversity, and then we said, you know what? We don't believe this, but we got to do 6 Stories Up, on Zoom.
Right.
So we had to learn it. We had to learn everything. And we did 6 Stories Up in the Roaring '20s, and we tied it into all the same, if you look at it, so many of the same things were happening back then as they were in 2020.
Right. And I think, didn't you have a Life magazine about the 20s?
Yes, you gave that to me. A Life magazine about the '20s, and we were able to cull all of our ideas from there. So each of the mentor child teams, they each picked a theme, like immigration or the flappers or whatever, and they wrote their piece on that, which was so cool. In fact, we have the trailer for the show for our audience to watch.
Okay, great.
Help! Help! Carmen, how did you get into the game?
The same way you did. I'm also the god of doorways. I simply opened the door between reality and this game and tempted her with a ring pop, and she went in.
Help! Help!
Ouch! The truth hurts.
Let her out. She's only 4, and my dad is 6'4". You don't want to mess with him. Don't worry, I'll save you.
Failed again, Miss Perfect. You haven't completed the Challenge 1 quest. But I'm feeling generous today, and I'll let you comfort your sister. And here's a ring pop for you.
Now, let's move on to, the idea, of course. Do you think there is going to be a future where people will be able to go back into theater. And most importantly, as your dear friend, biggest fan, Mr. Bortz would say, I'm not the grandson of Joe and Rose, so I just can't go, to the IBC Theater and see Hamilton. So,
Right. I think there will be there will be some form of in-person theater, but I think that we're going to be much more cautious. At least, see, we don't know so much with the different variants and things like that. I think there will be. I don't think you can keep theater down for that long. People want that connection of being in person. So I don't know. I really don't know, but I think it will. And back to your comment about people not being able to afford it.
Right.
I have no idea what major theater is going to do, but we always have a reduced rate for people with disabilities. But I do believe that you still have to pay something. If it's pay what you can, it's pay what you can.
Right.
If somebody can't come to one of our shows, they can call me and I'll say, pay what you can.
Right. What else? What are your other future plans?
Well, we have a very exciting project happening. It's a show called Always Greener that we've been working on for close to 5 years. And it's a musical. And there's 21 actors, parts for actors with disabilities. Singers, actors, and it's just beautiful.
Okay.
And right now, we wanted to stage it finally as a workshop version and have people come in and make their comments. And then we were going to do a world premiere.
Sure.
Well, we were accepted by Victory Gardens Access Program to do it there. And we planned it for June 2020. It was all set. And then the pandemic hit. So we know we can't do that workshop version. So what we did a music video of one of the songs. That was very exciting, which is I Need More.
Great.
And we use video footage of the Capitol Crawl in it, and I got special permission and photos from Tama Olin.
Oh, that's great. Okay, well, I think we talked, we're pretty much done, but please come back. And, Tekki, you've done everything. I always hear this on talk shows. Would you please announce your candidacy today for the presidency of the United States?
Sure.
So, okay, and, and I don't think you have to tell you who wants to be your first lady, our own Jason Sanicki.
Right, of course.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Tekki. Anything else you'd like to say?
I would just like to say thank you so much for having me on the show. This is really, I always enjoy being with you.
We enjoy having you. Happy 25th anniversary. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.